Jenny is an amazing human, but one of the coolest things that I just learned about her is that she's also on a roller derby team, the Santa Cruz Derby Girls, and her roller derby name is Def Jen Records. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Miss Jenny Def Jen Records.
Thank you so much, Amber. It is an honor to be here with you today. Like Amber said, my name is Jenny Veach Olson. I'm a development manager at Digital Nest, and my career journey has taken me all over the place. I was a college instructor and taught musicology, which is music history, to I've worked in special education, and now I'm in the nonprofit world. And so it's proof that you do wherever your career leads you, and sometimes that's totally unexpected. I'm also, I live here in Watsonville. I love this community. I'm very involved in city government. I serve as a City of Watsonville Planning Commissioner, and I really believe that our community is thriving and that we are in the midst of a revitalization that's exciting, and I am honored to be a part of it. And so I just want to acknowledge all of you for coming here today and being a part of our inaugural Nest Flight Conference. And I hope that you leave feeling inspired and empowered, and that you have a group of advocates, ourselves included, who are behind you. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. I think I'll make them come out one at a time. So our first one is Rafael Pantoja. Come on out and pick your spot. Rafael was born in Salinas, where he attended public schools until high school, and then he attended St. Mary's College in Moraga, California. Soon after that, he attended graduate school at San Francisco State University, where he earned a master's degree in Spanish literature and a certificate in legal interpretation and translation. Rafael went on a different career path after graduating from San Francisco State and started to work in various tech companies like Google and Tesla. And he is now a recruiter for Facebook. So welcome, Rafael. Our next panelist is Anita Garcia. Come on out, Anita.
She's got fans.
Lots of love for Anita. It turns out Anita knows everyone, so I'm not surprised that some of you all know her. Anita Garcia is alumni from the CS&3 program, where she earned her computer science degree with a concentration in software engineering in 3 years. She is passionate about empowering women and does everything with the future of the 831 in mind. Anita is the founding president of an all-women college campus computer science club called HerScript, and is helping open Monterey County's first Girl Develop It chapter, an empowerment movement for adult women who wish to learn how to program. She is currently a computer science education coordinator at CSUMB and spends her time learning about engaging in the ag tech entrepreneurship in her free time. Welcome, Anita. Our next panelist is Morgan Matsoa. Matoza. I'm so sorry. So embarrassing. Morgan, come on out. Morgan is the marketing coordinator for Cal Giant Berries Farms based in Watsonville. Morgan graduated with a bachelor's degree in journalism with an emphasis in public relations and a minor in marketing at Cal State Long Beach. With a history originally in fashion design, ranging from working in retail, styling, and then production for a fashion and lifestyle magazine in Los Angeles, following graduation, she soon realized that her true passion lied in her Central Coast roots with the produce industry. With a brother, father, and grandfather who have all served within the produce industry with long-lasting positive careers and friendships, Morgan recognized that her potential to learn, grow, and follow their footsteps, doing what she soon realized was her true passion as well, working creatively and tirelessly to bring more fresh fruits and vegetables to tables, and more specifically, berries. Welcome, Morgan. And our final panelist is Michael Kelly. Michael Kelly works at Plantronics, which is based on the west side of Santa Cruz. He's a senior level digital media and communications strategist with a diverse background in technology and consumer packaged goods. He's highly skilled in developing and implementing marketing and communications programs in complex and technical categories. Recognized as a thought leader and experienced in leading high-performance teams to deliver on the bottom-line business results. He is now the global lead social media, influencer marketing, and social selling person at Plantronics. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks.
So with that, we'll get started with our panel. As Amber explained, the setup is going to be, I have prepared some questions ahead of time that each of our panelists will get to answer for you. And then a little bit later, we will open the floor up to your questions. And we're going to do it either one of two ways. You may have received a note card in your bag that you can write down a question and then hand it to Antonia, who is our helper down there. Or you, if you would prefer to just ask your question on the mic yourself, which is an awesome opportunity to engage as well, then you can kind of stand up and make your way to one of the aisles, and then she'll come find you with the microphone. So do not hold back. This is your opportunity to learn and to hear from our panelists. So know that that's coming. So with that, I think we'll get started. So the first question I have for our panelists is, what was the most valuable thing that you gained from your college or university experience? And so we're just going to start right out with, what did you gain from college? So Morgan, let's just start with you this time, and we'll kind of make our way this way.
So I kind of had a different experience. I guess I'll start with high school just to give some background. I was bullied. I didn't have the best high school experience. I was bullied by, my teachers, by people I thought were friends. So it wasn't the best experience, and I didn't want to go to school. When you're in that kind of environment, you're like, I want to stay at home. I'll do anything I can do to not go to school. So, I went to apply for colleges following graduation, knowing I didn't really have the grades, unfortunately, but I thought, what the heck, I'm going to try, maybe I'll get in somewhere. And unfortunately, it was probably one of the most defeating moments in my young adult life, knowing, shoot, I can't even apply to a college. So at that point, it was sort of, my next option is, I need to go to junior college. I need to make this happen for myself. I want opportunities. I want to have a great career one day. And though I didn't, necessarily make it happen off the bat in high school, it's like a second shot. So I went to junior college and definitely worked my fanny off there. I went to every office hour, every opportunity I could to speak with, a professor, and late nights studying, and kind of kicked it into, first year. And that's kind of when it all turned around for me. I ended up being top of my class. I graduated as valedictorian, and I was always kind of a student where my friends would be like, oh, you're dumb, you're not gonna go anywhere. And it's because I wasn't applying myself, and I wasn't necessarily inspired in high school. But I turned it around, and it was one of the best experiences, I think, in my life. And I've never been so proud of myself graduating the way I did. And then I got a scholarship to CSULB. So I think that's the most valuable thing that I gained in my college experience, was actually at junior college, knowing that you have all the opportunity in the world right in front of you, and really take advantage of it and believe in yourself. Don't listen to those outside voices. Make things happen for yourself, and don't give up. So I learned I was more than capable of doing that.
Thank you.
So I would say I'm going to share two valuable things that I learned from university and college. So the first is this belief that the impossible is possible. So the reason why I say that is because I was a member of the CSN3 program, which is an accelerated 3-year bachelor program. And to my understanding, it's actually one of a kind program. So it's this like cohort model, and the idea is that students, graduate in 3 years. So computer science is hard, especially in 3 years. It was a very rigorous program. At the time, the program was getting a lot of national media coverage and local media coverage. There was a lot of compelling stories being put out there. So some of these stories, of course, were a lot of the students came from like a farming background, right? So a lot of people, of course, had opinions about that, and were writing articles kind of being naysayers about the success of these students and the program. And so this is, one of the challenges that me as a student, I'd like read these articles. The people next to me were like people they were talking about. They were talking about me in this program. And then I realized, from many success stories that they were wrong in their opinions. And I went through this program successfully. A lot of my fellow peers did as well. Again, these are people that did come from like farming backgrounds, even like had farming experience themselves, ended up going to like these big companies like Apple. A lot of the people that I went to school with, I was fortunate enough to myself go to a big company, Salesforce. One of my really inspiring friends ended up at Uber. Like having come from Mexico at a very young age. So I'm just like seeing all these success stories. And so the one like big takeaway that I definitely got was like miracles like are real if you work very hard. So definitely that belief that the impossible is possible is one of the things that will never go away because of what I saw and experienced. The second thing is definitely my network. I am so happy to have been surrounded by like hardworking and brilliant, genuine people that aren't going anywhere. And I love connecting with people, and so I think definitely that group of people is one of the most valuable things that I got from college. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I want to give a little context to my academic background. I am from Salinas. I went to public school up until about junior high, and then I started getting into trouble with just doing bad things, right? My parents pulled me from public school and they put me in Palma, the private all-boys Catholic school. It was tough. It was tough for me to adapt. It was mostly, white and privileged, and with students that had tutors and had computers in their house. So it was tough. But I adapted, and I graduated. I graduated on time, and I applied to a bunch of schools. I got into a private school. I wanted to go to Cal. I wanted to, go back to public school, but luckily I was given an opportunity to go to St. Mary's under a high potential program that was meant for underprivileged youth, for folks that were either of a demographic where they don't normally graduate and go on to college, or financial hardship. I thrived there. That's really where I hit my stride for a few reasons. I had a support system, and at the same time, the smaller school, the smaller setting, the private education also kind of helped you get in touch with your teachers, with your professors, and actually go to their office hours. So that helped me out, but I would say the two biggest important lessons that I got from my time at St. Mary's, which is really what formed me more than, I love Palma. I played sports for them. That's part of what I gave back. I played football, but St. Mary's really taught me how to become a student. So I learned that I needed to love what I was studying. I didn't know my major until the end of my sophomore year, and it keeps changing, but you need to love what you study. What you're going to graduate, what your degree is going to be in. And it doesn't always have to be practical. I understand. My brother is very practical. My brother went to Santa Clara for an accounting degree, and he finished it, but now he's not really necessarily loving what he does. But I get to love what I do because I studied what I wanted, and even though I don't have the profession what I studied in, I still have a really good backup career if I have to have it. The second thing is the networking. I believe Anita mentioned networking is crucial. It absolutely is. I never had a professor or life coach or anybody that took me under their wing, but luckily I was able to network with a lot of nice, very generous and important people. and that kind of helped me to navigate situations I was not familiar with, especially being from an immigrant family.
Yeah, so when I think about the most valuable thing that I got out of my college experience, like the easy answer is I met my wife 20 years ago. I moved into the dorms, and I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri in the Midwest. I literally turned in my cap and gown at my high school graduation and got on Highway 80 and just kept driving until we hit the ocean here. And then I went to Humboldt State University, and literally, yeah, we were in the same dorm room, right? So when I think about college at a high level, when I was reading the questions, it's my family, it's my network of friends that I've been able to grow with and develop with over the years. Specifically around kind of my career path at college, I came out there and, you know, I wasn't necessarily on an academic, you know, I was trying to, you know, you don't go to Humboldt State necessarily to pursue, like, on a strict academic pursuit, but I went out there trying to study photography. I thought I was going to be doing artistic photography. That was what I was really passionate about at the time. It turned out that there was about a 2-year waiting list to get into any of the like beginning art photography classes. And so it quickly became apparent I was going to have to pick another, you know, path here. And so I started looking at the photojournalism, kind of journalism opportunity. And one of my first professors said, like the first week in class, he said, if you want to make any money in journalism, you have to go into public relations. And I was like, all right, well then sign me up for the public relations track. And so that ended up kind of putting me on the path that led me to the technology industry, and it kind of opened the door for my career path as to where I am today. But definitely, you know, when I think back, you know, 18 years later, it's the friends, it's the original network that I built on the West Coast, and of course the beginnings of building a family that was probably the most valuable part of that chapter of my life.
Well, thank you. I like how everyone talked about the importance of relationships and also overcoming challenges and those deeply personal challenges that really kind of create who we are. And so with that in mind, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I add
Absolutely,
one thing?
absolutely.
One other piece of advice is when you go off to college, you don't have, you know, your family, your parents to tell you when to get up, when to do things. So the self-discipline that you learn, you will carry with you for the rest of your life. Self-discipline is what allowed me to graduate in 4 years with 2 majors. I don't think I would have achieved any of that. I might not have even graduated if it wasn't for the self-discipline that you acquire in college.
Absolutely. And so for my next question, what are other life experiences outside of college or university study that you think prepared you for your career journey? So Anita, do you want to take this one first?
Of course.
All right.
Yeah. So without a doubt, I think my internships really set me up for success. So it really helped me sort of navigate what I liked and what I didn't like quickly. So my goal while I was studying was to get exposed to as many areas of tech as possible. So I tried like mobile, I tried web, I tried even social entrepreneurship. So definitely my biggest takeaway outside of sort of like my classwork was certainly my internship at Salesforce. That just added like a lot of power to my resume. There was, you know, getting connected with the ag tech scene here. That's really the future of this area, and I, you know, needed an opportunity to develop my skills, so it kind of shot 2 birds with 1 stone. Also getting involved with creating HerScript, right? It was this like social entrepreneurial project, really. We would host like hackathons. We would really like outreach to the community. We actually held our first hackathon here at the Digital Nest. This is a very important and dear place to me. So I would definitely say getting that real world experience, making products for people that would actually use them. So like my first year, I actually created an application for Me Earth, which is over in Carmel Valley. They're a nonprofit that does work around sustainability. So even like as a freshman, you know, like now looking back to that code base, it's like horrendous. But I was able to like start and finish a product, right, for like an actual person. So in terms of impact at an early stage, I think it really, really helped me to get where I am now. Yes, I think that's my answer.
Great.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. It's what other life experiences prepared you for your career journey?
That's a very profound question for me. I wasn't on top of my stuff enough to get an internship when I was wrapping up college. I highly recommend, as Anita mentioned, try to get as many internships as you can, even if it's not in your focus area or area of study. That's the mistake I made. I couldn't easily find something in political science or in Spanish Lit, where both of my majors. So I kind of just gave up on it and said, hey, you know what, I'm just going to focus on graduating in 4 years. So it was good. I set a sight for myself and I did it, but I do kind of regret not taking any internships. Now, the way that impacted me was after completing undergrad, I went straight into grad school at San Francisco State. And by the time I graduated from San Francisco State with my interpreter's credential and my master's in Spanish Lit, it was the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, the beginning of the worst economic downturn or Great Recession. So all the positions that I could have applied for as a legal interpreter for all the municipalities in Northern California, all of them were being frozen because these were government jobs. These were state and municipal jobs. So I was left with student debt. I was left with no work experience, and I was left with a master's, all these degrees, and no job. So I had to take whatever job could come my way to pay the bills. I worked at Target selling electronics. I worked at GNC selling vitamins. It taught me a lot of humility. It took away any sense of entitlement that I deserved something just because I went to school. So that was probably one of the biggest life lessons I ever had. The lumps, as you say, you take the lumps. So there I was at Target with all these degrees, making minimum wage, getting berated by people that can barely speak. And that was a very humbling experience. I learned that pride does not pay the bills. And from there, I picked myself up, and I continued to work, I continued to network, I continued to refine my abilities, and then eventually I got a chance in a professional entry-level job, and from there on, the rest is history. So that's the biggest lesson I ever had was pride doesn't pay the bills. Even if you have all these degrees, you just got to go out there and pick yourself up by the bootstraps.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You know, building on that, you know, from the very first opportunity I had to go out and work from when I was 12 years old, you know, we're talking about working at a gas station. I delivered sub sandwiches for a long time. I worked at a toy store. I worked in an apartment building, like, you know, painting, throughout my whole high school career, taking those jobs and, like you said, kind of learning that humility, learning what it means to work for $8 an hour, talk about finding inspiration for wanting to get into a better place, right? But as far as interesting life experiences, you know, when I was up in Humboldt, it's a community that loves reggae music, and I'm a big, passionate fan of music in general, and at the time, big way into the reggae community. And we had these artists that were driving from San Francisco to Seattle, passing right by us. And I thought, you know, what an opportunity to kind of grab some of these artists and start throwing concerts, filling up those middle of the week, you know, nights for them. So I started a production company called Trinity Productions, and started off small, throwing little concerts in Humboldt. Eventually built that up to the point where we were doing tours up and down the West Coast, all the way from Santa Cruz to Seattle. So really just, you know, this was kind of my first step into being an entrepreneur. Literally put up every single poster on I did everything myself, from, you know, negotiating the contracts, to doing all the promotion, to organizing the venues, getting all the sound equipment together. So I learned how to hustle, right? And I always say that, you know, once you've been cornered by 12 Jamaicans after the show talking about where's my money, not a lot of business scenarios are going to phase you after that. You know what I mean? So it's sort of the school of hard knocks of hustling and entrepreneurship, and that is actually what helped me get my foot in the door at my first tech job, which was doing PR, which is where they took a chance on somebody that they saw clearly had the hustle and the ambition to make something happen. And it was based on that, you know, that step that I took to build something and to go out and just make something happen. Yeah, so a fortuitous route into technology through reggae music.
That's cool.
Yeah. Morgan.
Yeah, so kind of building on what Anita was saying, for me, when I was at Cal State Long Beach, I was like, where are the internships? I'll sign up for whatever that makes, obviously, sense. I'm a marketing, journalism, PR background. That's what I majored in. And so I didn't care if it was paid, unpaid necessarily. I just really wanted the experience. Obviously, paid is preferred, but you know, I remember getting this internship with a magazine in LA that I had been following for the longest time. I just admired everything about, you know, the magazine, the aesthetic, the messaging, just everything who they worked with. So I got an internship with them, and that was kind of huge for me. It was unpaid, and it's like sleeping on my friend's couch. So this was like after college. I was like, let me crash at your house. Like, I just need this internship. I need to stay in LA, and so she let me stay with her. And it was a very thankless internship experience in the fact that obviously it wasn't paid, and I was doing a lot of manual labor, and that was okay. I was learning, but it was more so being in the environment around the people in the fashion industry that I thought at the time were like the most glamorous people. This is the most glamorous job, and you know, it's not always as glamorous as it seems necessarily. So it's interesting to just be in the backside, and this is something I thought I wanted to do forever. And sometimes, you know, the people in the industry aren't the nicest. They aren't, you know, saying thank you or noticing you, and there wasn't as much room for growth as I thought. And so I think in that stage I kind of realized, you know, maybe this isn't for me, and this is why you do the internships, you know, like test out as much as you can, ask questions. If you have a family member or a friend that's in an industry that you're interested in, ask questions, you know, network, and never be afraid to ask. So luckily my family, my grandfather, my father, my brother, they're all in the produce industry, and going from fashion and thinking that was my whole life from the time I was a little girl to then starting to ask them questions. I was fortunate to have, you know, those sort of people in my life that I could go to and asking them about this industry, and, you know, maybe is this something that I would enjoy, and kind of shadowing my dad, and, you know, just, you know, being receptive to the feedback he would give me. So I think that's kind of where I learned, you know, the route that I wanted to take, and it's not always what it seems. So following what Anita was saying, try to intern if you can, but just ask questions. Even your peers and your family members, friends, you know, a lot of people are usually willing to give you their advice and some sort of direction. So that was helpful for me in kind of gauging and navigating where I wanted to go.
Yeah, great. So I want to move on and talk about a little bit more about networks, but specifically kind of breaking it down to those people who really have a deep personal impact on us. So would you tell us about one of your mentors, and kind of how did that person become a mentor to you? Because I know in my experience, the people who have mentored me, I didn't go up to them and say, hey, would you be my mentor? I realized after the fact, after the relationship had developed, that was the role that they were playing for me. So Michael, you want to start with this one?
Absolutely. So moving a little bit further down the career path, one of the job that I had immediately prior to Plantronics was at American Licorice Company. This is the company that makes Red Vines and Sour Punch. You guys are probably familiar with those candy brands, right? And at the time I was coming in, you know, I made sort of my specialty at the PR firm social media. This was at the time when you still needed a .edu address to sign up for Facebook. Mm-hmm. We're talking the early days of Friendster and FriendFeed, and Twitter was just this, you know, was basically down half the time. But I made that my specialty, and this was right at the time that companies were starting to hire people to do social media as a specific discipline, right? And so I came in with this sort of PR background, but I was learning how to become a marketer. And the lady named Madeline Friedman was our consumer insights manager, who eventually became our marketing director at American Licorice. And she's the one that basically took me under her wing and taught me the ABCs of marketing, how to start with consumer research and insights and use that to inform a strategy, how to build brands, how to measure. And, you know, so she really just was the person that kind of, you know, led me down the path of what it means to be a full-fledged marketer, which is what I do now. But the most important thing I think she taught me was around sort of the emotional intelligence of how to be a leader, to be confident enough in yourself to be able to empower other people without the fear that it's going to overshadow you, to be knowledgeable enough to know where the strengths lie in a team and to trust those people and empower them to kind of take ownership of that. And I think that's probably the most valuable thing for me as I now lead teams and I'm trying to foster and develop talent, is having that confidence to know that I want to empower people, I want to help them build and grow. And she really was the one that kind of demonstrated that for me. So that was probably the most valuable piece out of that mentor relationship?
That's a very interesting question. I know that you mentioned that sometimes you don't know that you have mentors until after the fact. Years later, you reflect and you're like, oh, that person was a mentor to me. I don't have that individual. I never really got mentored by anybody. Nobody took me under their wing. It could have just been life circumstances, or it could have been that maybe I expected to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Rafael, can you be my mentor? I don't know what it was, but I didn't really have a mentor. What I did have, though, were a lot of professors that influenced me. Dr. John Dennis, who started that high potential program at St. Mary's, he went out on a limb for me and a group of other students. They were anytime anybody says, hey, you know what, let me see if I can get you in through this program, or maybe you can apply for a scholarship and I'll see if they can get it reviewed for you. Anytime they offer any type of help, take it. You never know when that might open a door for you. So that professor, I had another professor in grad school as well. He and I related, but we never had that really close bond. But talk to people that are willing to help you, and just take their help.
Great, thank you. Morgan.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty fortunate to be able to say that my mentor is probably my current supervisor. My boss, Cindy Jewell, she is the vice president of California Giant Berry Farms, and she's just taught me so much since I've been with the company. It's only been, for me, going on 2 years, but just her level of integrity and kindness and respect that she shows everyone that she works with, including myself, is very admirable. And just knowing that I'm a young marketer in the field and trying to sort of, prove myself and pave my way, she's really given me ownership of my position and the independence to be able to sort of pave my own path. So, she's given me a little freedom to kind of create different levels of my career and just ask questions. If I want to go do this or I want to work on this project, she's pretty receptive to being like, okay, I trust you. And so I think having that level of trust in her on a professional level, and then also just on a personal level, I feel like I could, talk to her about things outside of work, and it's neat to have that sort of relationship with a supervisor, one that I think might be rare. So I really am blessed to be able to be in that position, and I hope to be a lot like her one day.
Yeah, I don't think I have one particular person that I can point to and say that they've really built me to where I am, except for, of course, my dad. I just had an epiphany that, hey, I think my dad's actually been my biggest mentor consistently throughout my life. He actually raised me as a single father for more than half of my life, so he's definitely been the person that made me go to school. It's actually quite funny. The reason why I'm actually here is because of a conversation that I had with him, and just to kind of paint this picture, this is after high school. I actually didn't want to get into college. I got into business school over in Channel Islands, which is a little down south, and at the time, the input didn't quite justify the output, and I said, I'm going to not go to college. My dad didn't like that, so he actually said to me, which was quite transformational, he said, if you don't go to school, you're going to pay rent. So I pretty much decided to go to school. So I think, it's having people like that in your life. Thankfully, my dad was an advocate of my college career, so I'm very grateful for that man. He gives me just great life advice. Aside from that, another kind of nucleus of people I can think of are the CSN3 mentor team. So the people I went to college with, they were really my support system that I can go to for college advice. I would always there was one particular person, Joe Welch. I would always sort of underplay myself. When he would look at my resume, I would say, yeah, but it's just like a Hello World app, and he'd be like, don't say the word just. So having people like that to really help me kind of sell myself a little bit better was very helpful, and this was all kind of built in with the college experience for me. I was fortunate to have that group of people. And then another person that I actively reached out to was through an online mentor platform called MentorNet. So I actually created a profile, and I really wanted a mentor. And they had this like algorithm that would like match you with someone that was like similar to you. And I kind of felt, so I had this like email exchange with this woman. She worked in financial tech at the time, and had like a technical background and like a bit of business infused in there. And obviously she was seasoned in her career, so she was a person that I didn't have in my immediate network that I thought was cool that I can just have virtually. I actually forget her name at the time, but it was really cool to just like almost see myself, it almost felt like I was talking to myself from the future. So that was really cool, and I feel like maybe a lot of people already have that by looking at their aunts or like, I don't know, their relatives. To me, I found that through an email on MentorNet. So those are kind of like the three pivotal like people / group of people. Yeah.
Thank you so much, each of you, for sharing your personal stories. And I think that really creates an interesting narrative about how there's so much unexpected and unknown about our career journeys, and that it really, there are points along the way that give us these experiences that then when we look back, we're like, oh yeah, that's maybe why we were doing that, or that created something that I wasn't expecting. And so I think my last question for this part of our panel is, what has been the most rewarding part of your career journey? So, you want to take that first?
Sure. Gaining perspective, and there's two things: gaining perspective in life, and also just meeting a lot of intelligent people. Those are probably the two most rewarding things about my career. Like I said, my world was small when I was in Salinas. I was just trying to graduate, and then when I came to the Bay Area for college, I was just trying to graduate, and then when I finally graduated, I was just trying to find a job, and I landed in one of the best industries you could possibly land in. It's recession-proof. Tech is recession-proof. So that's a good tip for you guys all. But yeah, just gaining that perspective that you don't necessarily have to graduate with a certain degree to end up in tech. I don't have a CS background. I don't have any type of engineering, computer engineering or anything. I just did what I loved. I built up my skill set. I worked really hard, and then when I was given one opportunity because I was noticed, I took it and I ran with it, and I've worked at all these great tech companies. Just to kind of give you guys some insight on how I got into tech, I was working selling basically radio and marketing radio in San Francisco. So after working at the Target, after working at GNC selling vitamins and applying to all these entry-level jobs, a radio station, you guys might know KMBR and KFOG and 107.7 The Bone. That's all one station in San Francisco, and they gave me a shot as a sales rep / marketing representative. I was designing commercials for small businesses and helping them buy airtime and selling them airtime and designing commercials for them on radio, and I crushed it. I did so well that Google came knocking on the door, and they were like, look, it's the middle of the recession, but we need to scale our company. We need to hire people. We're going to be hiring people on a contract basis that have never worked in tech at all. We're looking for top performers in all these industries that have a lot of talent that can't retain talent. So they were picking people from real estate, from banking, from sales. So a lot of these folks were unemployed or underemployed because of the recession, and Google got really smart and said, we're going to get the cream of the crop. We're going to bring them in as contractors, and we're going to invest $40,000 in their training, and then we're going to have them work hard for us. And I was one of those very few people that was fortunate enough to get that opportunity as a contractor. From there, I went to Tesla, and from there, I went to Facebook, where I am now. And then the other thing is just like you don't have to always graduate in what you plan on doing, because life takes you in a different direction.
So the most rewarding part, there's kind of two answers that come to my mind. One is that when I showed up in Santa Cruz, like the first thing I did was I threw a Mikey Dread concert at the Santa Cruz Vets Hall, right? I was not on this technology path, and it quickly became apparent that that was not going to support a lifestyle and a family in Santa Cruz, right? So the fact that I've been able to just hustle and just take advantage of one opportunity after another, to be able to get to a point where we now can support this family and lifestyle and own a home in this beautiful part of the Central Coast, that's truly rewarding. The other piece of it that comes to mind is the opportunity to now be able to develop talent, develop other people. So I've had the opportunity at a couple different companies now to build teams where I generally am hiring someone, it's often their first career, because social media, to be a community manager, that's, it's a first step into a real career. And so I've had the great opportunity to find, hire, develop talent that have now gone on to do amazing things. So for example, one guy that I hired literally is probably 22, got him his first job. This was for doing social media for Red Vines. He went on to, he's now the creative director at Wyden and Kennedy. So if you guys see the Old Spice and the KFC commercials, that's his team, all right? Another one of my guys now runs this huge company that they basically do web design, and he's gone on to build this very successful company for himself. And the list goes on of people that, and just most recently actually, last week, and this kind of pains me a little bit, my right-hand man at Plantronics just left to go take a new role at Dolby as a senior digital marketer in San Francisco to go launch a new unknown product. So that's literally as of last week. So it's bittersweet because you build these relationships, but it's also really great to be able to watch those people move on in their career, and that's really rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah, Morgan.
Most rewarding part of my career, that's kind of a loaded question. I feel like I am very blessed to be in my first real career role with California Giant. I'm fortunate to be able to have a role where the marketing team is myself and my boss, essentially, in-house. So myself and the vice president really are doing the day-to-day marketing initiatives in the office. So it's sort of given me that room for growth and almost that one-on-one time with my mentor to be able to ask questions and ask to do, to pursue different projects and things. So that's been really neat. It's been able to kind of elevate me in my career, I guess, faster. And so I started at 22, and I've been able to travel to so many various, states and see different countries and, collaborate and network with different people at different events. So that's been really, really neat. I've been able to meet a lot of smart, like-minded people that share similar interests, and that's been great. And then obviously just to be able to do, I went to school for marketing, PR, and journalism, and that's what I do on a daily basis. So that's what I'm passionate about, and so it's really neat to be able to feed that into my daily life. I drive to work every day, and I'm excited, genuinely. I'm able to do photography, which is one of my biggest passions and side hobbies. I get to do that at work. I get to event plan, be involved in a lot of philanthropic efforts and give back to our communities, and I get to write, leverage that journalism aspect into my daily life. So it's really neat. I think it's been really rewarding so far being able to, do what I love to do, and my California Giant family is just a great group of people. It's like I didn't have the best experience in high school, but it's definitely turned around since then, and I've kind of created this little family at work, so it's really neat to be able to have that, so I feel lucky.
So one of the things that actually kept me in CS, computer science is a hard degree, and having not really known about that in high school, most people that try it, they may or may not end up liking it. I ended up loving it not only because it was intellectually interesting, but also I really loved being around the people. Generally speaking, CS students and professionals tend to be not only brilliant and just problem solving oriented, but really humble too. So I really liked that as a student, and I am liking that currently. So my boss is very much a problem solver, and so I have two bosses, and they're both CS folks, and they both have their own personalities, but both ultimately are problem solvers, and they think big, and I think the rewarding aspect of being a member of their team is not ever drawing limitations on my thinking. So I think it's exciting to be part of that kind of environment. But then secondly, and I think most importantly, is seeing my students here. This is very rewarding. I am so excited that you're here. One of the things that I love the most is, so I just started my job about a year and a half ago-ish, but I've been able to see some students learn the fundamentals, struggle through the fundamentals, ask great questions, build projects, and then they get to like a really cool internship, and then that they're excited about, and then they get this job offer, and then that whole cycle and just being a part of that and witnessing it is extremely rewarding. I love when my students text me and say hey, I got this internship offer. I always respond with exclamation points because it's super rewarding. And the student FaceTime that I have is definitely my favorite part of my job. The back end stuff is kind of a nightmare sometimes, but definitely seeing those reactions and oftentimes the demographic that I work with and that I'm a part of is first generation, underrepresented. So it's even more of a big deal because they're building a legacy, and that just excites me tremendously. So I would say that's definitely part of, or one of the most rewarding things.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So now we're going to open it up to you all, and we'll take your questions. So I think the way that I'd like to facilitate this is if you have a question, make your way to either raise your hand or make your way to one of the aisles, and Antonia will come around and we'll just open it up and see.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's on.
Yep. 1, 2.
Yes,
yeah, there
we
it
can
is.
hear it.
Wonderful. Come on over. Introduce yourself. Tell us what school you're with and what's your question.
Okay, I come from Cabrillo College, Jacob Romandia, and so I look at a lot of keynote speakers online, and I just want to know what your guys' perspective on the concept of college is not necessarily efficient for everybody. But it is for some people, depending on the person. How would you direct the young adult or the young coming out of high school, for them to ensure their success? How would you direct them if they can't either afford college or they don't have the mindset of college? How could they contribute to their communities without them being able to go to college? And then just a bunch of some billionaires saying don't go to college. And I'm being
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So it sounds like you're on the college path. Are you potentially thinking of? Yeah, so it sounds like what you're asked. Actually, can you, in a nutshell, ask it?
where would you direct young adults coming from high school if they can't afford college or they have a mindset or they don't feel confident?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so just coming from my own story, I know my story well. I was very much one of those people that wasn't sold on the college dream. I heard the same things you hear, Mark Zuckerberg didn't graduate, whatever. He has this billion-dollar company, and I very much had a lot of different inputs. Whatever decision that you make, there's going to be a plethora of inputs, right? And obviously I had my dad tell me the thing that made me go to college, but in retrospect, I actually think that college is one of the best decisions I've made. And it's, when I was back in just graduated high school, I would have never thought that I'd be on a stage saying that. So this is a surreal moment for me, but it's a great investment. You are right that it's potentially not for everybody. It is expensive. What I would recommend to that person is, if they're financially, struggling, you don't have to take all of the classes. Start at a community college and find the transfer program there, and they will guide you and then get you connected to scholarships. So there's definitely, for the person who wants it, there's a lot of financial aid available. Now, whether you should do that or not, that's really an individual question you have to really ask for. But if the obstacle is financial, if finances are an obstacle, then there's definitely ways of doing that internally at community colleges. And if the person is very set on not going to college, and if I had to, like, sit one-on-one with them, I would say, well, what's your plan B? Like, what are you gonna do aside from that? Like, it'd be interesting to see what they're thinking. Like, maybe their career that they have in mind doesn't need it. But it's really great to, work with reality. And if the job that you want actually requires a degree, well then the answer would be like, you should get a degree. If it doesn't, then I'd be curious about how they're planning on pursuing whatever it is that they're pursuing.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
I would say, I would definitely recommend, say that college is such an amazing opportunity to build your network, to grow as an individual, to step outside of what it means to be, in your family unit growing up and to start to kind of develop. That being said, anything you can do to avoid coming out of college holding hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt is a good thing. Like, I went to Humboldt State, right? And I would not be on the path the trajectory that I'm on had I not gone to college. And at the time, it was kind of up in the air, right? But every day I'm in meetings with Stanford MBAs and other people that went to these, really large universities. And I guess my point is that it's not necessarily where you go, but it's how you apply yourself, how you take advantage of those opportunities. But if for no other reason, even if it's obviously your career should be a consideration, but I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went to college. In fact, the job that I have, your high school guidance counselor always say, the job you're gonna do doesn't even exist yet, right? I don't know if you guys ever heard that. That's so true. Like, literally the job that I do now did not exist. Working with social influencers, like, that wasn't even a thing in 1998, right? But just recognizing that you need to be on a trajectory, you need to start building that network, that's something that college can do for you. And finding the right balance based on your resources so that you don't come out buried and needing to dig out for years and years after that is gonna help with your career trajectory.
And I can put a little plug in here for Digital Nest, which is the organization that is sponsoring our Nest Flight conference today. We are a career training center that's free and open to young adult members like yourselves. And this is what we're passionate about, is giving you the skills in technology to go out and get a job and to learn how to create that network. And maybe if college is not right for you at all, or in this particular moment, you might find a mentor or a peer at Digital Nest who can help you with that. And so we have our Watsonville Center here, and we have one in Salinas. And so if you're not a Nest member and you're interested in what we do, find somebody who's wearing the Nest Flight t-shirt and just ask them about how can I be involved with Digital Nest on a daily basis outside of Nest Flight. And so, yeah, there are opportunities and there are ways of getting those technical skills that you would need for some of these entry level jobs without kind of the more traditional college route. So let's take another question. I think we've got one. Oh, sure, yeah.
I just want to expand on that, sorry. Apologies. I would like to echo what Michael mentioned. There's just no excuse nowadays. I mean, community college is becoming free in California. So, if you don't want to take on debt, that's a choice. But to say that you can't afford it, it's not really a valid excuse anymore. Likewise, also, just going to college gives you it opens a lot of doors, especially networking. But another reason why I would recommend just at least taking a look at college, and obviously, if you're a special talent and you love something and you don't want to finish, that's perfectly fine. My boss didn't finish college. Zuck didn't finish college, but you should at least try it. Give it a try. And I'll tell you one story. I was recruiting electricians for one of our data centers. The electrician, he had graduated high school. He went and got his electrician's license, became a master electrician, part of a union and all that. But he wanted, after a few years of being in that job, he wanted to take that next step. And he asked, hey, Rafael, could you consider me for an electrical engineer role? Mind you, most electrical engineers have to have their EE and graduate from a traditional college. But he went through the vocational route. He went and he got his master electrician's license. He got his electrical license to do his own job. And it wasn't until after that he realized that working with electronics and working with electrical gear and transformers, that stuff opened the door for him to become an electrical engineer. And so after doing that, he actually went in that route and took night school and graduated with his electrical engineering degree. But while doing that, he was still working at Facebook at one of our data centers as an electrician and became an electrical engineer. And now he does everything from coding, building management systems, to actually designing them and building them, and even rolls up in sleeves with the other electricians and starts working on, the cabling, the wiring, and whatnot. So this person realized, hey, I want to go the vocational route. I think his dad was an electrician as well. So he did what his dad did, and then he found out that he wanted to take that next step and educate himself as an electrical engineer.
Thank you.
How's it going? I don't know if you can hear me. My name's Jake. I'm from Monterey Peninsula College. I'm an older returning student, former veteran and firefighter and all kinds of stuff, but I'm trying to get back into the workforce in a later age. And what I worry about is interviews and interviewing techniques. I didn't know at Plantronics or Facebook or in college or in ag tech if you guys are, everyone likes to say we like to find the candidates that are outside the box thinkers, and they kind of throw these strange hypotheticals at you. Coming from a more traditional old school route, how do you guys plan for your interviews and prepare for them?
Well, thank you so much for your service, both your military and your public service. And that's a great question that, I would benefit from always thinking about how do you sell yourself? How do you present your story in a marketable way? So Morgan, go for it. Thank you.
First of all, echoing her, thank you so much for your service. My boyfriend is actually a fireman and an ex-veteran, so that's amazing. I think going into an interview, it's a lot about selling yourself. So it's showing your personality. Don't be afraid to let your personality shine through. I think that's huge. I think people want to work with like-minded people and a positive culture. So I think having that culture is huge. So showing who you are and a little of your personality, I think, was really going to benefit. And then also, I think just obviously doing your homework. So, look up and study everything about the company you're going in to interview for, and even looking up some of the employees. I know that sounds creepy, but that's why we have LinkedIn and all these platforms. Do your due diligence and your research and be prepared for any and everything. I think it's good to go in not sounding scripted and robotic, and being natural and as calm as you can be. I know it's definitely nervy going in for interviews, but I think just letting yourself shine through and really focusing on your strong points, and obviously just sort of etiquette. I know right now my company's been interviewing people, and I've heard some stories, and there's people that come in and they kind of slouch, or maybe they're chewing on gum, and they're just the standard things that you're no, don't do that. So I think just let yourself shine through, and that always
build a little bit on that.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up LinkedIn and the idea of doing your homework, right? Understanding who you're about to go speak with, what was their educational background, checking out, doing the research on who the interview panel is, right? That'll give you a big heads up. Obviously, conducting yourself professional, bringing the right energy into the room. So much as I'm hiring people, I'm looking for, this is someone I'm going to be in the trenches with every day. So you could be brilliant, but if you don't come off as the type of person that I want to have sitting next to me in the room when things get stressful, that to me, so you're looking for as much of the right fit from a personality and just the energy that the person brings into the room, as well as what's on their resume or what might be on their background. And also on this idea of LinkedIn, having a network, having a warm introduction, having a reference, I can't tell you how important that is, right? Not only is it going to get you the interview, but it'll tip the scales in your favor. It'll help you to, you're basically being recommended as somebody. So any opportunity, whether it's getting involved with something like Digital Nest, I'm very active in a trade organization around my industry where I go regularly to committee meetings and conferences and events specifically to build and foster that network. That time and time again has paid dividends when I'm looking for a new opportunity, that you have this warm introduction that can say, hey, this guy's awesome, you should really check him out. And so building your network, fostering your network, and then doing your homework, are all essential parts of the equation.
Can I add on that? Sure. So if you're, are you applying for a technical role?
Yeah, networking security.
Okay, so I'm not too familiar with that, like beast per se, but I do know you are. Cool. Do you want to?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. I mean, I was just going to give you some, there's like general advice and there's like more specific advice. And more specific advice I don't know how to give you because I'm not in that profession. But generally speaking, if you want to like break into the field, you're going to need to really think about 3 different parts, right? The first one is networking. This is going to be like meeting people in those roles, getting your resume to recruiters. And that's going to take a lot of hustle, right? There's going to be follow-up. You're going to get ignored. People have flooded inboxes, right? So the networking is going to take some time, right? Do that like every other week, every week. Get a schedule, a routine for yourself to figure out that part of it. There's also like the actual applying part. A lot of people actually get this like, you know, imposter feeling and say, I'm not really qualified for the job. And people will not actually, you're laughing because this is true, right? So you don't know unless you try. So like my biggest advice is actually apply, like every day. Like you should, and I'm not exaggerating, you should have a list of 100 companies that you want to intern at, and actually apply to those positions. The third part is like practicing. So there's like books written about this, right? There's the behavioral part and then there's like the technical part. So the behavioral part, I think they touched on greatly. The technical part is where I'm going to hand it over to yourself because I'm not sure how he can prepare technically.
Yeah, so everything they mentioned is spot on for any type of interview background, especially the confidence part and the whole imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Don't let that affect you. Don't let that impact you because once you start believing that, you're going to defeat yourself. So definitely get past that. You're applying because you believe you are a strong fit. And you got to carry that with you. Now, I'm going to give you a few don'ts. Don't build yourself up to where you're overconfident and you come off as arrogant or cocky. Never BS. Don't say, oh, I led this project or I built this by myself. Give credit where credit is due. Don't shortchange yourself either. That's what a lot of folks do when in interviews, especially technical interviews. Sometimes they say we when it was actually them, that one individual. So say what you built, what you designed, what you worked on, and specify that so that the interviewer can see what you worked on, what your strengths were, what your experience was. And then also highlight what you did collaboratively as part of a team. So that way they could differentiate between, what you built yourself, what you worked on yourself, and what you worked on as a team, and they could evaluate you as both an individual and as a team member. Now, as far as security, you're in luck. You're in high demand. A lot of people are gonna look at your background, and even if you don't have that much experience, they're probably still gonna be interested. So everything they mentioned in terms of applying and preparing and recording yourself, maybe doing interview questions, that kind of stuff, I would highly recommend. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in front of a mirror, sometimes just audio record or video record yourself. Mm-hmm. Coding, go back to practice CS fundamentals. Some of you might get further along. And this is going to be true for almost any of you in tech. You're going to get further along where you've got more of the applicable experience, but unfortunately some of these interview processes require that you demonstrate your fundamentals. So you're going to have to go back to your old textbooks, back to your old notes, and almost reteach yourself some of the old fundamentals. Like, I know long division, right? But it's been years since I've used long division manually. You usually just type it in a calculator or your phone and you figure out what this divided by this is. But I would have to go back if I were taking a math quiz to refresh myself on long division. So the same would go for anybody doing a technical screen or a technical interview, is go back to refresh yourself on those CS fundamentals, even if you've gone beyond that, because they need to qualify you first technically before they can proceed with you for technical interviews. Talk to them about what you know. In your particular case, security, Stuxnet, the PlayStation hack, breaches, maybe even ours, that kind of stuff. What perspective do you have on security? What knowledge do you have on security? What new technologies are developing in that area to combat that, hacks and whatnot. But yeah.
One more thought. There's a lot of big technology companies, and one that jumps to mind is Cisco. They have opportunities for development. So for example, Cisco has a program called the Cisco Networking Academy, where people that are interested in a career around building, maintaining computer networks, the routers and the switches that go into, or security aspects of it, can learn the basic skills, and you can even actually eventually learn your CCNA, your Cisco Certified Network Administrator degree. And man, if you show up at an interview and you've already been like proactively gone through a training opportunity like that and earned some sort of a degree, that's going to tip the scales. So finding opportunities, especially within these really large companies where they do sometimes have development paths, can be a great thing to look into.
Just as a source of inspiration for you, I actually went to school with someone that has a similar kind of story as you, and it's quite funny because he actually has long hair too. So he actually, worked at this what is that big bank, HSBC? So they shut down locally, so he went back to work, or went back to college rather, and I actually had the privilege of having him in my cohort. And he, I think, really benefited from an internship. I actually interned at Salesforce with him, and he's actually working there now. So this is just like a really nice story of someone who went back to college, got an internship, and then like turned that into their career. So again, I'm really selling the internship thing here because it can really lead into your next job.
You get, I'm sorry, just a little follow-up. Do you find that hiring authorities will take the time, even if you don't get the job, to say, hey, this is where you were strong, or this is where you're weak, do you all like to?
I think a good interviewer will give you that feedback, especially if you took the opportunity to do it. It does not always happen, I can tell you that much. But you would hope that you'd have the opportunity, and you can certainly ask. I think if someone asks, hey, this didn't work out, I appreciate the opportunity, I appreciate the opportunity to interview, can you give me some feedback on what you were thinking there? So that's something you could take a proactive step to do as well.
I think we have time for one more question and then some abbreviated responses, but yeah.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Johai Park, and I'm currently studying software engineering in CSUMB as a part of season 3, so shout out to Anita. So when I was started my software engineering journey as an education, the one that sold me into that pathway is because of the money or all the like financial perk that you get working in the big tech companies such as Google. You have a beanbag, you have a free food, right? So now that I'm really looking for an internship and then thinking about my full-time career after I graduate from this program, and then I'm it really got me thinking, wondering except for all the financial perks and benefits, is there anything else or more pursuing in tech industry? I would like to see myself really enjoying or having other things to keep in mind when I'm looking for internship and full-time offers. Thank you.
So as far as the benefits of working in the tech industry beyond the financial benefits, I mean, for me, it's being surrounded by brilliant, highly motivated people. They're just, when you walk the halls at a place like Plantronics, you're around these brilliant audio engineers. You're surrounded by people that have been in the sales industry for 30 years. You can learn so much from marketers that have had, that have worked at all these different companies throughout the Bay Area and through the tech industry. So just the opportunity to be surrounded by people that you can learn from is one of the really amazing things about being in the tech space, just the like-minded people that gravitate towards this and that are willing to work hard enough to get into that position. So the network, I think, is probably one of the best parts about it.
I would echo what Michael mentioned. I get to work with some of the most brilliant people I've ever had the opportunity to work with. In my company, I'm never the smartest person in the room, so that's always humbling, and I'm always learning. And that's not true in my everyday life. Sometimes I, speak to other folks, and it's like talking to a wall. But when I go to my company, when I show up to Menlo Park at Facebook, I'm very humbled because I feel like an idiot. But that's a good thing, because every day I'm learning, I'm sharpening my tools, I'm acquiring a lot of knowledge. The other thing that I would mention as well is when you get an opportunity to build a company up. I started at Facebook in 2012. The company had just gone public. It was about 2,200 employees. So I'm in the 98th percentile of the employees there, because now we are worldwide, I think we're somewhere around 50-something thousand. So yeah, I got to grow with the company. I got to establish the culture. I got to, really put my imprint on the company. So much so now that a lot of the practices that we have in the recruiting organization were started by me and some of my colleagues that I started with. So it's really cool to be able to grow and impact the company that is a global brand now, and be able to say that I was a part of it kind of towards the beginning.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation up here, and in particular, 2 takeaways for me are the importance of those relationships and that network, and how really that starts right now, and it starts at maybe the next thing that you're going to go to today, which is lunch, when we'll be sitting and talking with each other. But really taking the time to invest in people and knowing that this will help you. And the larger your network and the more expansive it is, you never know when somebody will come out of the woodwork, or you'll make that connection, lead you to the next either opportunity or the next conversation. And so let's just be sure to keep, pass your business cards, exchange email, connect on LinkedIn, but keep your network growing. And then the other thing that I took away was that starting your career is hard and it's challenging, and it's that way for everybody. And we find ways to overcome, but it's all of those unique experiences that really contribute to who we are and what we have to offer to a company. And so I think in my own, I look back at my own experience, and sometimes I didn't have all of the technical skill, but I had life experience, or I brought something else to the table that was just my story. And so I hope that today you heard our panelists' experiences, and you heard some of their challenges, and you also heard some of their rewards and the things that they love and are excited about in their careers, and that you found that to be encouraging and also empowering. So I'd like you all to join me in thanking our panelists, and then we can head out for lunch.